In this video, we'll discuss about writing tests by first writing a sample service and then utilizing that sample service to troubleshoot assertions failures. Now let's get started by writing a sample pet store service. I'll use the service template to generate this application. You can notice that there's a service file and also a test file for that service. So first we'll remove the generated service details. First I'll create a pet store specific HTTP listener. Instead of this inline listener, I'll use that listener. Before that, I'll define the port and the host variables. I'll also make them configurable. Let's define the pet store listener. Now instead of the pet store inline listener, I'll use the pet store listener. We'll use an in-memory map to store the pet details. The pet record will have a name, ID, and also the availability details. Next, we'll define the resource functions for the pet store service. We'll first define a get pet details service resource, which will take a pet ID as input. Upon receiving the pet ID, we'll look for that pet ID in the in-memory map. Based on the return response, we can either send a not found response or the pet details. Next, we'll define the resource function to add the pet details. First, we'll look for this pet record in the pet inventory. If it's already available, we'll return a not allowed response. Otherwise, we'll add that pet record to the pet inventory. We have defined two resource functions for the pet store service to get and post pet details. Now let's write tests for this service. We already have generated tests from the service template. We'll remove this generated code. In order to test a service, we need to define a client to call that service. So I'll first define the pet store URL. Next, we'll define the client we'll use to store the pet store service. Let's write our first test case. To add a new pet to the pet store service. We'll use the pet store client and do a post request. To the post request, we'll pass the pet details, including the ID, name, and availability. In this case, the expected response is a 201 created response. We'll compare the status code and also the received response message. For this purpose, we'll use the test assert equals function, where you can pass the expected response and also the what is the actual response and compare those two. We can provide a meaningful message to return when there is an assertion failure. Before we execute this test, let's change the availability information to be false and see how the test case behaves when we execute it. If you look at the received response, we can clearly see there is an expected and actual difference. So the availability information is where the difference is. You can notice what the key is and also the expected and actual values. If we change the availability detail to be true, let's try to run this test case again and see how it behaves. We can notice that the test has passed, matching the expected and actual responses. In this video, we discussed about writing tests in detail by first writing a sample service and then utilizing that sample service to troubleshoot assertion failures encountered during testing.